Ask and you shall receive. So Hugh Hefner, in 1952, leaves his job at Esquire after he was denied a $5 raise. He then took out a $600 mortgage loan, and then he raised $8,000 from 45 different investors. He then turns that into what we know today now as Playboy. Originally, the name was going to be called Stag Party, but he eventually decided that the Playboy bunny logo was probably going to be a better option. And boy, was he right. The marketing on that is genius. The first edition ever in 1953 in December was Marilyn Monroe. She was the first official centerfold. It began the first ever modern-day sexual revolution. And it really was revolutionary because it was some of the most accessible forms of adult entertainment that you could find at the time. Yet it was still classy, had an element of decorum to it, and was seen as a very, very prized position. That then leads to the Playboy clubs, which were more of a social gathering. You could go and have dinner, you could go and see the girls, you could have a business meeting, you could take a partner, you could go with your friends and see the Playboy bunnies. Now those girls are known as playmates, which is an integral part of the hierarchy system here that is important because he will use it against these girls. Now, before all of this, he was married to a school teacher. He did have, I believe, 2 children from that marriage, one of which his daughter became, I think, the vice president of Playboy. She was very, very involved, I know for sure. But in the 80s, he married again to Kimberly, and they had 2 sons together, Marston and Cooper. They divorce in the 80s sometime, I think it's the late 80s. She moves to the house next door, so they co-parent, but, you know. Then begins the 7-girlfriend era. That goes about as great as you think it is. And now these girls had a 9 o'clock curfew. They could go and do whatever they wanted during the day, but they had to be in the gates by 9 o'clock. They did have an allowance. They did have their salon paid for, their nails paid for, their massages paid for. They were given, in the 2000s, I know they were given at least $1,000, if not more. But I do believe that number was significantly higher in the 7-girlfriend era, because when he goes down to just Holly, Kendra, and Bridget, they kind of specify that they got a lot less money as far as allowance goes. They had the opportunities from Girls Next Door. They weren't paid for the first season, but eventually they were paid for the later seasons because they did grow in popularity, and they did get plenty of work off of the show when they left the mansion. Now when we get to the Holly, Bridget, and Kendra era, the Girls Next Door era, that's when the conflicting stories kind of start, okay? We're all in agreement that the 7-girlfriends era was messy. They were mean to each other. They tried to stifle each other. They tried to get each other kicked out. They were not girls, okay? But, so when we get to the Girls Next Door era, we have kind of the Holly and Bridget camp or the Kendra camp. Now, I believe both stories are valid, and I do understand all perspectives, but I do believe that the truth is probably somewhere in the middle if you listen to all of it, which I have. Well, at least I'm getting there. I'm reading the books now, but I've seen all the interviews, I've seen all of the shows. Yeah. Now, Holly says that whenever Kendra decided to leave, she wanted to get married and have kids, but Hugh progressively got more and more verbally abusive, which I completely can see, because you have Kendra that's gone, Bridget's gone, that only leaves Holly for a man who cannot be alone, and one person is not enough to fill that void for him. Holly claims that she left because he was so verbally abusive to the point where every day was like a living nightmare for her, and I can completely understand that. But I also understand that all three girls probably just wanted to leave and live a semi-normal life. Now, Kendra goes on to marry Hank Baskett, who's an NFL player originally for the Eagles, and she claims that she did not witness anything happen. Everything was hunky-dory. In fact, everything physical just kind of stopped at a certain point, which Holly also agrees that it did. So I tend to believe that. But yeah, so you have two conflicting sides, which I do understand that Kendra probably has some sort of an allegiance to Hef, because she would not have had a career if it was not for him, even though they were the stars of the show, and the show would not have been what it was without the girls. The show wouldn't have existed, period, without Hugh Hefner, and we all have to admit that. Now, after what I think of the original Girls Next Door era leads into season 5 of the Girls Next Door, there's still season 5 and season 6 left, where we are introduced to the twins and Crystal. Crystal would go on to be Hugh Hefner's last wife. The twins also claim that one of them did get pregnant, even though Holly and Hef had tried to get pregnant for, I want to say, 3 or 4 years. They had even done like IVF and all sorts of treatments, and Hugh was not, the man was 80 and older. But the Crystal era is what I consider to be the most messy, because she just seems miserable. And all accounts, from what I can see from producers and people who worked on the show, including the other playmates, did not like this girl. And honestly, she just seems so messy. She has nothing nice to say, even though she's the final girl. She ended up with all the money, Which, I mean, fair, get your bag, but come on. You just seem pressed. Oh God, now I'm scared I'm gonna get a cease and assist, because she does like to do that to people. But you know what? Whatever. Anyways, even Marston has come out and said that he feels like she controlled his father in the end, made sure that he was pretty much alone and as uncomfortable as humanly possible. Even though she was completely financially benefiting from all of this. This is all alleged. This is just my own opinion. Hey girl. But anyways, yeah, Crystal Hefner has been named kind of the most dramatic of all of his partners. And goes on to work in his foundations and his charities and completely trashes him. Which, that's fair, but you still profited off the situation. So you at least give credit to where credit's due. I don't know. Let me know how you feel on all this. Who's your favorite centerfold? Who's your favorite playmate? Did you watch The Girls Next Door? Do you like it? Do you like my hat? Okay, love you. Bye.